Hi everyone, my name is Celine and welcome to our fifth session in our webinar series on Super Dads, Super Kids. If you missed our first four sessions, no worries, you can always go back after this session and watch them. But each session is designed to stand on its own. The whole series of Super Dads, Super Kids was developed by Dad Central and is focused on responsible fathers. Men who make a conscious choice to be the solid role model kids are longing for and need today. Now comes the topic that's most troublesome for most parents: discipline. Super dads set clear limits and discipline carefully. And discipline done in a caring, loving manner is more likely to get the desired response. Therefore, discipline needs to be done in the context of the larger relationship. The stronger dad's attachment and bond is with his child, the more his child will respect his decision and wishes. Discipline must always be done with a respectful attitude. This respect will deepen a child's trust in his father's words and expectations. There are so many benefits of setting limits with children. Just to list a few, setting limits helps them learn patience, limits keep them safe, and limits make kids feel secure because things are predictable. Setting limits and discipline is so important for our kids. However, there are a few mistakes parents can make when setting limits. The first mistake dads can make when setting limits is too much structure. Too much structure reduces space for creativity. It can lead a child to be afraid of making mistakes, and chances of making mistakes increases with the number of rules a child lives with. With that being said, sometimes structure is necessary because structure can keep our kids safe. For example, when making Play-Doh or playing soccer, or when a ball bounces into the street, structure needs to be done in the context of warmth and respect for the child. Dads use too much structure when they're always telling children how to play and what to do. Kids need to be able to make choices and learn from those choices. Another mistake that often can be made is rapid fire commands, which is too many commands strung together. Young children can't remember too many commands at once. It leads them to give up and not listen to dad's commands. So, for example, take your clothes upstairs, get your pajamas on, brush your teeth, and find a book for me to read to you. It's just too much for them to remember. So try breaking it down into smaller chunks and just focusing on one command at a time. Being too much in a rush is another mistake dads can make when setting limits. Rushing often happens when an adult doesn't plan. This puts stress on children and they will less likely cooperate out of choice. Another mistake that's often made is being vague or unclear. You want to be as specific as possible in your request. An example of a vague command would be, clean up after yourself. Instead, try being more clear by saying, please put your cup in the sink, or whatever task you're trying to get them to do. Another common mistake made when setting limits is using criticism to motivate. Criticism is often used to get a child to do something, but it relies on sarcasm, comparison, and shaming the child. Some examples of criticism to motivate include, don't be lazy, or your sister never acts this way. Criticism without warmth will likely lead to rebellion or apathy. Finally, using questions is another common mistake made when setting limits. Using questions can open up a response a dad may not want to hear. So, for example, don't you want to get your shoes on so we can go to grandma's house? This leaves it open for a child to respond yes or no to. When no is not an option, dad needs to make sure it isn't one. Instead, you can ask, what do we need to do to get to grandma's house? Or are we walking or riding our bikes to grandma's house? Using questions is also unnecessarily demanding to the child and may result in the child shutting down. For example, Why did you color that green? Verse, I like your creativity in choosing green there. I don't often see that. In the first case, the child, who is doing something fun, now has to stop and craft a reason for the choice, which the child may not even have. In the second case, the parent is using praise and providing an opportunity for the child to respond in an open-ended way if they'd like to. Now, there are several strategies to use when setting limits. The first one is to keep your commands and limits to one thing at a time. You'll want to keep commands and expectations age appropriate and be as specific as possible. Another strategy is to give warnings when a transition is coming and to focus on what you want, not what you don't want. I'd suggest to use when and then statements. So for example, when you eat your broccoli, then you can have a cookie. Praising cooperation and describing what your child did well is another super helpful strategy when setting limits. And finally, only set limits that you are able to follow through on. All right, so you have set the limit for your child, but they have crossed that limit. What do you do now? How do you manage your child's behavior when that limit has been crossed? Well, first, we need to understand that behavior is communication, and feelings need to be acknowledged and labeled. So before dad does anything in response to his child crossing the line, he can pause and ask himself, what is happening here? Why is it happening? And what can we do about it? Once we've done this, we can then consider a few options for guiding that behavior. One option is logical consequences. This is giving the child a consequence that fits the situation. Children learn best when the opportunity to learn is as closely related as possible to the situation. For example, if your child spills milk, a logical consequence would be for them to clean up that spilled milk, not lose TV privileges. Another strategy to manage a child's behavior when the limit has been crossed is natural consequences. This is allowing the situation to run its course so that a child learns through experience. A child often learns better because they experience the consequences without someone telling them about it. For example, if they didn't finish their homework, the natural consequence is a teacher giving them a low mark. Or, not coming when their name was called the first time means they miss out on the popsicle everyone else received. A third option for guiding behavior is ignoring the behavior. Some behaviors will go away if they're ignored, such as yelling, whining, or temper tantrums. However, with that being said, not all behaviors can or should be ignored. We cannot ignore our children if their behavior is putting their safety or others' safety at risk. Finally, another option for guiding behavior when the limit has been crossed is to repeat the command, limit, or expectation, holding the boundary despite whining or anger. So for example, you may have to continually repeat, you may not go outside until your piano practice is complete. Or, you may have a cookie once you eat 2 more pieces of broccoli. When it comes to managing behavior and the limit being crossed, it's so easy to just react to the situation. I get it. However, it is important to remember to talk with our children and get their point of view. We need to find out what is happening, why the behavior might be happening, and discuss what needs to happen. Now, before I close, I would like to share a few resources with you that I can email you if you'd like. The first one is a Play-Doh recipe that you can make at home with your child. And while making it, I'd encourage you to talk with your child about the texture, the smell, and the color of the Play-Doh. This is such a great activity to do with your child to bond and to create an even stronger attachment. I also have 2 information sheets that I can email you as well, including a discussion on good discipline and an overview of some of the things we discussed today. Finally, if you have any questions or would like the resources I discussed in the previous slide, please email me at earlyon.admin@niagara.ymca.ca. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you in our next session on physical health and nutrition. Bye for now.